In a quiet forest, where the trees swayed gently in the breeze, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves like golden whispers, there lived a small, fluffy bear named Little Bear. His fur was soft and warm like the inside of a mitten, and his eyes were full of wonder, always looking up at the sky or deep into the forest as if he were searching for magic. He lived in a cozy part of the woods where the birds sang lullabies in the early morning, and the river hummed sleepy songs as it flowed over smooth stones. Little Bear loved many things. She loved the smell of honey on a sunny afternoon, the way the clouds moved slowly like sleepy giants, and how the grass felt cool beneath his paws. But most of all, Little Bear loved bedtime. Not just because it meant snuggling up and closing his eyes, but because bedtime meant dreaming, and dreams were his favorite kind of magic. Still, sometimes, as the sun began to dip behind the hills and the shadows stretched long across the forest floor, Little Bear felt a little unsure. The world looked different in the evening. It wasn't scary exactly, just quieter and darker. The trees didn't whisper in the same way, and the wind felt a little cooler, like it was carrying secrets. One evening, as the stars began to twinkle like tiny lanterns above the trees, Little Bear sat outside his cave and looked around. He wrapped his little arms around his knees and thought, "I wish I had a special place. A place just for me. Somewhere I can feel safe and warm and sleepy. A place that feels like a hug." And so, he made a plan. The next morning, before the dew had even dried from the leaves, Little Bear began gathering things. He didn't know exactly what he needed, but he trusted his heart to lead the way. First, he walked softly through the trees until he found a patch of moss. It was thick and fluffy, like nature's carpet. He gently scooped it up and placed it in his basket. Then he wandered farther and found some fern fronds that were wide and green and smelled like rain. He collected soft feathers from the forest floor, little bits of bark that smelled like cinnamon, and even a few pine cones not too prickly, just right. He brought it all back to his cave and started arranging things carefully in the corner. The moss became his bed, soft and springy beneath his paws. The feathers he tucked between the moss, and the fern fronds he layered on top like a blanket. He stepped back and looked at it. "It's cozy," he said to himself, "but something's missing." So Little Bear padded back into the woods. He visited his friend Spinner, the spider, who lived in a quiet part of the forest where the sunlight made her webs sparkle like silver threads. "Spinner," Little Bear said kindly, "do you have any extra silk I can use? I'm making a hideout." Spinner tilted her head and smiled. "For sleep?" she asked. Little Bear nodded. "A very special place, a secret, cozy cave." "I have just the thing," Spinner said, and she gave him a small bundle of silky threads that shimmered like moonlight. Little Bear thanked her and tiptoed back to his cave. He strung the silk above his mossy bed, and it caught the light in the most magical way. It looked like dreams already lived there. Still, something else was missing. Little Bear thought and thought. He sat in his cave and looked at the way the light came through the entrance, how the shadows danced along the walls. He realized he needed a little glow, something soft to keep him company when the moon was high. So he walked deeper into the forest, to a hollow tree where the glowbugs lived. They were tiny, bright bugs who loved nighttime more than anything. "Hello," Little Bear said gently. "I'm making a special place to sleep, but I need just a little light, not too much, just enough to feel like a star is watching over me." The glowbugs gathered around and whispered among themselves. Then the oldest one flew up and handed him a tiny jar, glowing warmly like the color of honey. "One jar of glow," she said, "just for you." Little Bear took it with great care. "Thank you," he whispered. He placed the jar in his cave and watched the golden light fill the space. It was gentle, not too bright, and it made the walls look like they were smiling. He curled up again on his mossy bed, under his ferny blanket, the silver silk above him, the glow jar beside him. "This is almost perfect," he sighed. Almost. He closed his eyes and thought about what made him feel safe when the stars were out and the forest grew still. He remembered the smell of his mama's fur, warm and comforting, the way she used to hum to him. He couldn't bring that into his cave, but maybe he could find something close. So he went out one last time and wandered, until he found a patch of lavender and chamomile growing near a babbling brook. He picked just a few sprigs, careful not to take too much, and brought them back to his hideout. He tucked them beneath his mossy pillow, and as he lay down, the soft, sweet scent wrapped around him like a lullaby. He took a deep breath, letting the smell fill his chest, and finally smiled. This was it. His secret hideout. His cozy cave. His sleepy, snuggly, safe little place. He curled up tight, his paws tucked beneath his chin, his ears twitching as the wind whispered through the trees. The glow jar shimmered quietly. The forest hummed a soft song. The stars blinked slowly overhead. Little Bear yawned. He imagined floating on a cloud made of feathers, drifting above the treetops, where dreams swirled like snowflakes and the moon told stories only sleepy ears could hear. In his hideout, he felt nothing but warmth. No fear, no cold, no noise, just the gentle heartbeat of the forest and the hush of nighttime love. And slowly, ever so slowly, his breathing grew softer. His eyelids grew heavier. The world outside melted into gentle shadows and golden glows, and Little Bear fell asleep. He dreamed of dancing stars and cuddly clouds, of soft winds and kind whispers, of hugs that never ended, and naps that lasted forever. He dreamed of home, not just any home, but the one he made himself, with moss and feathers and love. And in the quiet forest, in the tiniest, coziest corner, Little Bear slept soundly in his secret hideout, wrapped in safety, wrapped in comfort, wrapped in dreams. The wind sighed peacefully. The moon smiled down, and the night held Little Bear close, all the way to morning.